Welcome to AI Decoded. Young people were told artificial intelligence would make them sharper, faster, more creative and more employable. But for many, that promise now feels more complicated. From students leaning on chatbots to write essays to graduates sending out hundreds of AI-assisted job applications only to be filtered out by algorithms on the other side. Roughly half of Gen Z now uses generative AI every week. Yet increasing numbers say it leaves them frustrated, even angry. So in this episode of AI Decoded, we're asking, is AI empowering the next generation, or is it quietly undermining it? Before we bring in our guests, we wanted to hear directly from young people living with this technology every single day. We've asked students from across the UK to send in short video diaries telling us in their own words how AI is affecting their studies and job prospects, as well as how they feel about AI's influence and how it makes them feel about the future. Here's what they told us.
For me, it's not a question about whether AI is impressive or efficient. It really is, and there's no doubt about that. But there are deeper questions of who owns AI, who is profiting from it, and whose labor is erased by it.
I think that myself and a lot of other young people are experiencing a lot of uncertainty at the moment regarding the future of work and which jobs are going to be available to us.
I don't think young people are afraid of technology itself. I think we're afraid of a world where technology is going to be used to deepen inequality.
Artificial intelligence can do good things. I'm not going to deny that. It can help with, analysing things that humans don't want to analyse in scientific fields.
Young people are being told that AI is the future and that we're simply supposed to adapt, but I think many of us are already concerned about how oversaturated the market is, and now we are being told that the entry-level work that we are dependent on to build experience could be automated.
My friends and I are trying to build these AI literacy skills in order to, do what we think is best for our futures. But I just worry that we're feeding into this AI hype and these narratives that if you don't adopt AI, you're going to be left behind.
It's both an opportunity for us to evolve and adapt again, because we will need to adapt. AI isn't going away anytime soon.
But that doesn't take away from the sense that my generation is the sacrificial generation, and that because we haven't fully figured out how AI is going to affect work, we are the young people, the people that are suffering.
AI is often spoken about as if it exists in a cloud, but it relies on a huge amount of energy and water and infrastructure. And in the middle of a climate crisis, I think it feels a little obscene to celebrate endless technological expansion without asking who is paying the price for that.
I think we need to pause and think about how we can also protect jobs and make sure that young people enter the workforce in a way that's sort of healthy and sustainable.
We've got a bit of a lineup change this week. Sitting in the big chair is me, Marc Cieslak, the BBC's AI correspondent. I'm joined by Sarah O'Connor from the Financial Times. She's spent the last decade reporting on the labour market. She authors the newsletter, The AI Shift, tracking how AI is reshaping work. And her new book, We're Not Machines, The Fight for the Future of Work, is published this month, and it examines how AI is already changing jobs in the real world. From the work of programmers, which you might expect, to truckers in Texas and miners in Sweden, which you might not expect. We're also joined by Dr. Rumman Chowdury, CEO of Humane Intelligence Public Benefit Corporation and the Biden administration's US science envoy for AI. She argues that AI should augment human judgment, not replace it, and that creativity in ideas ultimately begin with us, human beings. And of course, we have Dr. Stephanie Hare, AI Decoded co-host and author of the book, Technology is Not Neutral. We'll start with you, Sarah, if we may. You've spent years reporting on the changing face of work. When young people say AI is making them feel less valuable, are they right to be worried about those sorts of issues?
It's really understandable that young people feel so ambivalent and in some ways kind of worried about this. Partly that's the way that we're talked to about AI. We're often told that it's a tsunami that's coming at you, or it's a big wave that's going to hit. And it invites us to sort of think of this as something that's inevitable and that we don't control at all, and that all we can do is sort of try and get out of harm's way if we possibly can, and that all that governments can do is sort of plan for how to sort of compensate people who might lose out. And I think because we've started to think of it that way, and there are some people who I think have an interest in making us think that it's that way, that all we can do is just adapt to it or sink or swim. I think that's quite disempowering. And, you can kind of hear that a little bit from what some of those young people were saying, that they feel as if they don't have much agency here. My personal view is that we have more agency to control this and to shape it than we might imagine. But I think we have to kind of shake off some of these slightly unhelpful metaphors we've got into.
Is that the view of everybody else here? Is that what everyone thinks?
Oh, absolutely. I would fully agree with this, with Sarah's input. What we're also seeing, and I noticed in the videos, is this resignation. Importantly, people are not anti-AI. They just don't think we're on the good path. They see the potential benefits of the technology. They do not think that the current stewards of this technology have their best interests in mind. And why would they? Right? We see AI being used in all kinds of things, and the narratives around AI seem about human replacement rather than augmentation. I have a podcast called Thinking About Thinking and a forthcoming book on intelligence. And what I argue and what I talk about in it, along with actually a brilliant class of Harvard students in the podcast, is that the way AI and intelligence is being framed is as if it's a zero-sum game. AI is coming to get some, a bit of intelligence from us, or increasing amounts of intelligence from us, and what will we have left? And that's actually just the wrong framing.
You speak to people all the time about AI, don't you, Stephanie? And what is what's the mood music out there with the folks that you've spoken to?
I think what's shocking to me is that depending on what room you're in, you're going to have a totally different conversation. So if you're talking to people who are very focused on Wall Street, or who tend to benefit from some of the very big initial public offerings that we're seeing with the big firms that are hitting this year, they think AI is wonderful, and they don't realize that there are entire other rooms of people who hate it, right? Who don't like the fact that all of these models have been trained on stolen creative output. People's books, people's movies, people's films, people's pictures, people's social media feeds, people's Pokemon Go geotagged images that they did, 10 years ago, having fun with their kids, that are now being used to create maps that could be used for warfare, right? So I think there's that. People surprisingly do not enjoy being told that we're going to have a massive job apocalypse. Like, how interesting that they might push back against that. But when you talk to the people who are selling the AI, they are like, no, this is great. Everyone should buy our stuff. It will destroy jobs, and then someone else will clean it up. And weirdly, the population at large doesn't seem to enjoy that proposition. So it's very weird. It depends, I guess, on what side of the discussion you're on. But what I love about what we're talking about today is for young people. Because it's one thing for all of us around this table, who I suspect are perhaps not of university or high school age.
Of a certain vintage.
Indeed, we are all Grand Cru class. So we are older, we've got experience, we've got skills, and we've got networks. For us, this is another adaptation that we're having to make to our existing pathways. If you're starting out with this, if you've paid a ton of money to get a university degree, maybe you're in six-figure debt in certain countries like the one Rumman and I are from, the United States, and you're coming out and you can't get a job to pay that off, and everyone is just like, we don't even want to hire entry-level workers, we'll just get AI to do it. First of all, you're really in danger financially. But second, what is that doing for your sense of worth in this society? People don't want to invest in you. It's a terrible message for young people.
It's understandable why we're seeing the sentiment that we see in the film at the top of the show. Sarah, you write about competing narratives, that AI will free us from boring work, but also that it's going to cut jobs and replace people with cheaper AI-assisted workers. Now, which version of that are you seeing surface in reality?
Well, when I did the research for my book, as you say, I went out and I talked to lots of people in lots of different workplaces and industries who are sort of the first ones to be really heavily affected by AI, and also robotics, because I tried to talk to lots of white-collar and blue-collar workers. And what I realised was actually both of these narratives, both the kind of the utopian one, which is, as you say, like, we will be freed up from doing everything that's boring or dull or dangerous, we can be more human than ever, and the dystopian one, which is that there won't be any work left for anyone. Actually, neither of those things was quite happening. And the story that I realised was happening quite often that didn't seem to be told was that people were mostly keeping their jobs, but they were being changed, and sometimes not actually for the better. So some people were losing those very parts of their jobs that they enjoyed the most, the creative elements, the elements that involved sort of human judgment and thought, and they were sort of being crunched into these systems that actually were kind of paced by machines and measured by machines, and in which they kind of felt like they were more like machines rather than more human. Now, that's definitely not happening to everyone, but it was happening to a range of people, you know, whether that was people working in warehouses who are now surrounded by robots who are bringing items to them to deal with, and it's kind of become lonelier and also faster, or whether that's translators who now often, they haven't been swept away entirely, but they're given a machine translation, they're told to sort of tidy it up, but they have to do that like at twice the pace and for half the price. But I was going to say to your point about how, you know, there are these rooms where some people are really optimistic and then there are these people who kind of hate it. I feel like young people, the young people that I interviewed in my book actually had, I think, the most sort of sophisticated views about AI, in the sense that I think they can hold these two ideas in their head at once, that they're using it a lot.
Well, young
you know,
people
more
are
than most people.
often more open to new technologies.
Exactly,
You know,
that's always been the way.
You know, the way that they live is yet to be sort of constrained by experience and all of those kind of things. And as a consequence, they're often, you know, a lot more open to new things and new thinking.
And, you know, all the surveys show that they use these tools a lot more than older people do. So they know more about AI, they use it more, but also they're more aware of the pitfalls, and they're acutely aware that their particular generation might have some challenges about it. So I ended up thinking of it as kind of like it's a frenemy, I think, for young people, and they can see the promise, and they can also see why it poses dangers to them.
But Sarah, what do you think about, you know, warnings that up to half of entry-level white-collar jobs could disappear in the next few years? Is that an underestimation about how disruptive this technology could be?
Personally, I think that's an overestimation. I mean, we don't know. You know, no one actually knows the future. But what we do know is that these tools have now been in the world of work for like 3 years. Obviously, they're getting better and better and faster. So we have to allow for that. But actually, economists who look at the labour market, they're struggling to find any huge evidence that lots and lots of entry-level jobs are being snipped away altogether. There is a little bit, particularly in software development, which is one of those areas where AI is really sort of starting to take hold a lot. So you are seeing that there are fewer job adverts for software developers, the junior ones anyway. But more generally, I think it's really not a good time to find a job as a young person. That's for sure. That's true.
In general.
Yeah.
So
but that's a lot about the kind of
skewing
macroeconomy. And
do you think is that skewing the data? Is that skewing the way that people think about it? That it's just it's a tough place. It's a tough landscape to be trying to get a job in.
I mean, economies are struggling, right? There's lots of things going on. There's several wars happening. There are trade wars. There are real life wars. Growth is slow in lots of developed economies, and whenever that happens, it's hardest for people who have yet to get in. So that is a standard thing. And then you layer AI on top of that. And I think although we don't know, it doesn't help for a young person that you've got people who run these companies who keep saying, hey, you're not going to have to hire any young people now. But what we don't have yet is like very, very tangible evidence that this is happening at pace. But it could happen. And even if it doesn't, I mean, the other question is like, even if big companies continue to hire young people, the way in which they train those young people up, I think, is going to have to change. Because, you know, if I think about how I started out in the Financial Times, I started as a graduate trainee. So I was like really young, fresh out of university, didn't really know a lot about journalism. And I used to sit there and every day I wrote a stock market report, just like literally what stocks have gone up, what stocks have gone down, what were the percentages, interview 2 analysts about what they think, job's a winner. And like an experienced journalist would find this quite a boring task. For me, it was really challenging. But it was that kind of repetitive job that allowed me to develop my skills. And while I was doing that, I was learning from all the more senior people around me. The problem now is that those more repetitive jobs, the way that white-collar professionals in particular used to kind of get their feet under the table and learn their craft, those are the sorts of tasks that can be now done by AI systems.
Which is exactly the same in television. You know, working in television, you start at the very bottom as a runner or a researcher, and you learn very, very basic tasks, but you get very, very good at learning those basic tasks and then moving up the ladder slowly. And that helps build your experience base so you're ready to move up and you're ready to go into the next job. But I mean, Rumman, if I open this up to you, do you think that that's true? Do you think that the entry-level jobs that we're underestimating or overestimating the danger to those jobs?
Well, I also want to caution us from romanticizing, you know, the mundane. Yes, because we are all of a particular vintage, and you know, I would say that at the time that I had those jobs, I was also frustrated all the time because I wanted to do more and I was constrained by the restrictions or the limitations of things feeling very slow. I'll offer a different take. I'll offer the take that what the definition of an entry-level job is, because of AI, will now rise because the expectation of what somebody does at that job will change. What will happen over time is that university schools and children will adapt. So what we are seeing here right now, I think, is almost like a lost generation of young people. I think it's the next 3 to 5 years of college graduates who do have something to worry about because the educational system has not caught up with the expectations of the market. So when we say entry-level job, it's not necessarily they're not looking for young people. They're expecting a certain level of production, which we have not yet acclimated young people to. So the kid who is in maybe 14 today, when they are 18 or 19, will operate at a different level than the average 18 or 19-year-old today. So what is the fix for this? Instead of having these grandiose conversations about universal basic income because of these, grand claims of all jobs being taken away, even all entry-level jobs, what I think we should focus on are the young people graduating now in the next, let's say 5 to 8 years, and really focus on upskilling them to be ready for an AI workforce. It's not something to be scared of. It's just something that is. All of us lived then. We were actually quite young when workforces were digitized. It was a very similar
Change
conversation.
is the norm.
Correct.
Change is normal.
Right.
That's it. Change in the workplace is absolutely normal. It's only part of our socialization that makes us feel that change is not normal. But it is completely normal. And as you say, when the digitization of the workplace came along, that completely revolutionized how we worked.
So the question to raise is, what should education look like? What is the pedagogy of AI? Not just for young people, but also for us. We too are learning how to integrate AI into our lives, into what we do, into our everyday work. And there's two audiences of people that I work with. One is I'm increasingly working on AI in education, and one is I'm increasingly working on workforce integration of AI. And I actually find the challenges are identical. And there are a couple of things we are trying to preserve. One is cognitive capacity, enabling cognitive flourishing, and the other is economic flourishing. There are papers, now there's this wonderful paper out of MIT called The Augmentation Trap that talks about how if in the short term employees are using AI just to produce output, in the medium to long term you see cognitive capacity decline of a worker. So we're not just talking about young people. It's the same narrative. In short, the best way to think about AI integration is this. We should think about AI not as a tool of production as it's being pitched today, write an email, write an essay, et cetera. That is very demoralizing. What instead is the way to integrate AI so it is a tool of mastery? It helps you achieve the next goal. For young people, that's maybe easier to define in the context of school, but it is the same for us in the workforce as well. And mind you, this does not actually mean anything to do with the AI model itself. It has to do with how we introduce this AI model, how we talk about it, how we integrate it, even the user interface, and also to make sure that we are not afraid of it.
Okay, we've had a question in from an audience member, Martin Easterbrook. Now, he says, when AI can increasingly provide knowledge on demand, should education focus less on what children know and more on what they can do with what they know? What do you think about that, Sarah?
I think this is a tricky one. I mean, we've had that debate since Google. As soon as Google came along, people said, well, does anyone really need to know anything anymore? And I think what the research suggests is that actually you kind of do still need to know stuff. Not least because you need to know what
you can just Google it. Google everything. But get an LLM
luckily,
to
everything
answer
on the
every
internet is
question for you.
true.
Exactly.
So what could go wrong?
Right.
And ChatGPT never hallucinates, right? I mean, this is actually a serious point. Like, the reason that senior software developers are going up in demand, there are more job adverts for those senior guys, is because they have the knowledge and the experience to use these new AI tools well. So they can deploy all these AI agents, and then they can look at what they've done and say, do you know what? That is not quite right. Or that was a weird way of doing that, and we need to twist this, and I'm going to get this one to do that. And actually, you need an awful lot of baseline knowledge in order to be able to use these tools well and to make the most out of them. And so I think the real challenge for education is, to train people to use the tools, yes, but also while doing that, not to let that be a kind of intellectual crutch or shortcut, which means that you never develop the kind of baseline knowledge that you need in order to sort of direct them in a useful way. And I don't think universities have at all sort of figured out the best way to do that yet. So we're obviously in the kind of early foothills of this. And a lot of students, very understandably, have ended up using it as an intellectual crutch and kind of slightly hating themselves while doing it. But at the minute, their incentives are, I've paid so much for this degree, I need to get good grades, I'm under pressure, I've got all these essays to do. So it's so tempting to use these shortcuts.
Is this the argument, though, around, everybody when they were at school and used a calculator, and their teacher told them, you're not going to have a calculator available to you at a point that it's really, really critical, but everybody does now have a calculator on them in their pockets. And is this a similar argument?
Well, I appreciate the question being asked here, because one of the things AI does extremely well is it points out all the flaws in our massive institutions. And one of those institutions that has been highly flawed for a very long time is education. So there's nothing new or novel, as you're saying, about the question that's being asked, is that this technology is really pushing it to its breaking point. So I have a couple of thoughts about this. So, number one, the most elite people do not train their children to repeat knowledge. They train their children to have critical thinking skills and discernment. And in a world in which knowledge and information is cheap and free, that is what is a premium, is discernment and critical thinking. So the ability to put knowledge together into net new knowledge, learn from something and put it to something else. That's point one. Point two is, to quote the illustrious Stephanie Hare, technology is not neutral, right? So, she was very prescient in the title of her book. Large language models are very different from Google in that Google, yes, it uses an algorithm, but it pulls up information from the internet. Now, we have another layer when it comes to large language models, right? So now the AI company is acting as a content moderator. It is choosing what words to use, what adjectives to use when referring to a particular person, situation, et cetera. It parses out facts that this company has deemed to be valuable facts, right? So you don't get to scroll to page 2 or 3 of the search engine results. Instead, you are seeing a nicely homogenized summary. And by the way, in the world of sovereign AI, where different parts of the world may have different homegrown AI models, what you will see are the political values of that region being reflected in these models and being shared as fact. So not only is it the same conversation, if anything, it is more important that young people and people learning in an era of AI are able to discern fact from fiction and understand that AI models are not neutral in the content they're providing.
Stephanie, universities like Cambridge are now allowing AI in study. So is that, do you think, reflective of the wider world, or does it change, what a degree represents?
So I'm going to answer this as a student myself at the moment. I'm learning German, and also as someone who has taught, including up to university level. I'm fine. Use whatever tool you need to use to get there. But just know this. You're going to walk into an exam hall. There will be no AI with you. You either can speak German at that point or you can't. You're going to be writing an essay and you will go in. They might not even let you have a dictionary. It is a blank piece of paper and a pen for 3 hours. So practice with your AI model. They can give great feedback on your essays. But if you're using those to write your essays and passing those off to get good marks, you're going to have a terrible moment of reckoning. Take it from someone who's tried. You can't cheat it. It's like with working out. Great abs are made in the kitchen, not the gym. Great knowledge and skills are made by actually doing the resistance training. You're going to have to study, but use AI to help you study. It can give great critiques and feedback. It can be like your own personal Oxbridge tutorial if you wanted it to be. You can instruct it to do that, but you don't ask it to create for you.
I think actually your comparison about the calculator is quite a useful one, because what we had to decide when Pocket Calculator came along was how do we integrate this into education? Nobody thought, well, some people thought just keep it out altogether. But where we ended up was, I think, quite a good place, which is we don't introduce calculators too early. So my daughter's 6. She has not seen a calculator at school. I don't think she will until she's more like 10. She's learning how to do her times tables in her head. She's learning all of that kind of mental arithmetic stuff to do in her head first before she's given the tool, when she's already got those kind of neurons and she understands the concepts. And then we do exams. There'll be a calculator paper and a non-calculator paper. Because actually, when you've got these tools, you can do so much more fantastic, interesting, cool stuff, and that's to be celebrated. But you still need to check that you're capable of doing stuff without it. And I hope that with AI, we'll end up somewhere similar, where we'll be both challenging ourselves to do interesting things with these tools, but we'll also have some way of checking that we're not going into some kind of cognitive decline with them. Stephanie,
what skills do you think still matter?
So I love this idea that you can't future-proof, which I think comes from a desire just to feel safe. And we need to remember this young generation also are the kids who went through COVID and really sacrificed their education to protect the older generation. So I can understand their frustrations and that desire for security. And I really go back to the basics. There's this amazing invention that humans came up with ages ago. It's called writing. We found a way to disseminate it. It's called books. We've got the author here today of a fabulous book, right? We Are Not Machines, that talks you through what's really happening in the world with AI, not the speculation you're constantly seeing on social media. Read books. We've got another book coming down the pipe here from Rumman. It's going to be fantastic. Books show you how to think. They give you knowledge, but they also show you what to do with it, how to make an argument, how to build with it. So my plea is, yes, let's keep doing AI. Let's keep doing all innovation. It's amazing. But we do not have to abandon some of the stuff that we know works.
Invest in the oldest technology that the species has created.
Get your library cards out, people.
And on that bombshell, that's all we've got time for. If you want to pitch in, you know where to find us. Email us at aidecoded@bbc.co.uk. And if you want the back catalogue, the QR code is on screen right now, as if by magic. Now, it'll take you straight to the AI Decoded YouTube playlist. Every episode is there. And don't forget, it's also available on BBC iPlayer. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being our wonderful panel. And AI Decoded will be back next week.